This is NewsNation Now. I'm Nick Smith in for Nichole Berlie. We continue that breaking news this hour out of Wilmington, Delaware, where a jury has just found Hunter Biden guilty on 3 felony gun charges. This is video of the president's son, his wife, and the first lady leaving court just moments ago. Hunter Biden was accused of lying about his drug use when he bought a gun back in 2018. The 3 felony counts were brought after a plea deal fell apart last year. Sentencing is now up to the judge, also an appointee of the former president. Prior to this morning's verdict, President Biden said he would not pardon his son if he were convicted. NewsNation correspondent Joe Khalil has been following this from the beginning and is live outside the federal courthouse in Wilmington, Delaware. And Joe, the reaction I can only imagine has been one that each of you has been watching since Hunter and his family left the courthouse.
Yeah, we have. And let's start here, Nick. This is a historic day. This is the son of the sitting president who is now convicted of 3 felony counts, guilty on all 3. We've never been here in our history, so let's keep that in mind as we move forward here. Clearly, the jury found that the prosecution had proved its case. This case the entire time hinged on whether or not Hunter Biden knowingly lied when he checked a box that said he was not an illegal drug user. The jury obviously not convinced by Hunter's arguments, and within about 3 hours total of deliberating, relatively quick, they came back and delivered that guilty verdict. Now, we can tell you from our perspective, our NewsNation team inside the courtroom, Hunter Biden didn't really have much of a visceral, emotional reaction. He stayed pretty steady, turned around, hugged his attorneys, he hugged his wife. We heard that his uncle, James Biden, the brother of the president, did sort of gasp as he heard the verdict. That was essentially it. Moments ago, you showed Hunter walking out of the courtroom with the first lady on his one hand and his wife, Melissa, on the other hand. The first lady actually was not inside the courtroom when this verdict came down. It just shows you it was very quick from the time when we heard the jury had come to a verdict to the time when they actually announced what it was. Not a long time at all. And we had heard earlier in the day that the First Lady was not going to be here. So whether it was a last-minute change, whether maybe she didn't expect the verdict to come down so quickly, we don't know. But what we do know is that by the time she arrived at the courthouse, the verdict had already been read, guilty on all 3 counts. And there you see the images there, that historic moment. Nick, we know that between now and 120 days from now, virtually 4 months or so, that this sentence is going to come down. That's what the judge said shortly after the verdict was read, that in cases like these, generally takes about 120 days. That may change depending on some technicalities or potentially efforts to appeal. But as of right now, we think that that's when a Hunter may be sentenced in this case. So obviously, as we just mentioned, we've witnessed history here today. And moving forward, Hunter Biden is going to be a convicted felon as he now prepares for a second criminal trial in California coming up in September. A short amount of time away here, Nick.
There was no movement towards a microphone or opportunity for Hunter to speak, or did we hear anything from Hunter or his attorney, Joe?
I mean, virtually every media outlet in the country on a national level is here behind us, and all of us were sort of watching as Hunter came out to see whether he wanted to make any kind of statement, whether he or whether his attorneys wanted to say something. They did not do that. Every single day in this trial, they've had the opportunity to come up to the cameras, and obviously we all would have loved to hear what they were thinking and where their heads were at. They chose not to do that. Neither have the prosecuting attorneys, by the way. They did not come out today. Leo Wise, Mr. Hines, Derek Hines did not come out and make any statements afterward. They had actually indicated in the courtroom they were not going to do that. We are, however, going to hear from the special counsel in this case, David Weiss, the U.S. attorney that effectively oversaw this entire case, at 1:30 Eastern time today in an office that's about a 10-minute walk from where I'm standing now. So that will be the first official voice after this trial for someone who was actually involved in it. We've also been waiting to hear from the White House and whether the president has anything. In fact, I think we do have a statement. Just bear with me, Nick, here 1 second. This is a statement from President Biden that we just got in now. I'm going to read it. It says, quote, "As I said last week, I'm the president, but I'm also a dad. Jill and I love our son, and we're so proud of the man he is today. So many families who've loved ones that have battled addiction understand the feeling of pride, seeing someone you love come out on the other side and be so strong and resilient in recovery. I also said last week I'll accept the outcome of this case and will continue to respect the judicial process as Hunter considers an appeal. Jill and I always will be there for Hunter and the rest of our family with our love and support. Nothing will ever change that. So just as I'm reading that now for the first time, that is the reaction from President Biden, reacting as a father, reacting emotionally, largely echoing the statement we got from him at the beginning of this trial, where he said, I'm not going to get involved, but we're going to stand with our son, and we're proud of what he's overcome with his struggles with addiction. Nick.
Definitely a difficult time for the Biden family, and it is not over yet. Joe Khalil live at the Federal Building in Wilmington, Delaware. Joe, thank you so much. Let's bring in now Mike Eiglarz, criminal defense attorney and former Miami-Dade County prosecutor, alongside Richard Schoenstein, trial lawyer and legal analyst. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Good to be here.
Mark, let's just jump right into this there, because you know that this is a moment in history, like Joe started off by saying this. Are we surprised by this verdict, and what happens now?
It's not surprising at all. He didn't go to trial because he wanted to. He went to trial because he had to. This Trump appointee judge did not accept the plea bargain that was worked out between the prosecutors and the defense lawyers. So then he was forced to go to trial. The evidence he knew, and we all knew, was overwhelming that at the time he was knee-deep in addiction. He was smoking crack every 20 minutes. And even if there was a brief stint where he wasn't, involved in drugs, he was an addict. So he had every obligation to put down on that form, yes, I'm an addict, or yes, I am using. The argument made by the defense lawyer didn't resonate with the 12 jurors, that his truth was that I was not an addict at the time because I was knee-deep in my own denial of my addiction. That didn't work. And so he was convicted. Not a surprise at all.
Richard, was it a mistake for Hunter not to take the stand, or would that have only dug a deeper hole for him?
I don't see any reason he would have wanted to take the stand. He would have been cross-examined on so many things. That wouldn't have helped him at all. I totally agree with Mark. On the law and on the evidence, this conviction is entirely understandable. It's regrettable, I think, to prosecute a recovering addict for stuff he did while he was an addict. Those who have gone through addiction know it's the only disease that tells you you don't have a disease. And that might have been an argument he could have made at his trial, but I understand what the jury did here.
Richard, one of the things that was mentioned when the jury was selected is that many of those on the jury had a personal experience with addiction, either in their own family or by proxy, someone that they knew. Does it seem as though that was not weighed into their decision, Richard, or it possibly was?
Well, I assume it was. Jurors weigh everything into their decision. They weigh in the evidence. They weigh in the judge's instruction on the law. They weigh in their life experiences. Being a recovering addict doesn't mean you get a free pass. You still have to take responsibility for the things you did. And the jurors probably felt, given the way the law was explained to them and given the evidence, they had to hold him responsible.
Mark, so many say that this case never should have gotten this far. Is that true? Or, Mark, do you just want to poke a pin in that right now and say, no, there was every reason to bring this case forward and justice needed to be vetted out?
Look, I'm not going to criticize prosecutors for bringing a case where somebody actually lied on a form. Again, that's what the jurors found. And they did so at a time to secure a dangerous weapon. What I do take exception to is, why didn't the judge allow this case to be resolved the way the prosecutors chose it to be resolved, where they would have dropped the charges here and he would have pled to the tax evasion? What I'm concerned about moving forward is if the prosecutors ask for a single day in jail. That would be intellectually dishonest. At one moment, they're saying you could drop the charges. Now they're going to ask for prison time. Certainly, I hope that they're going to stay true to how they felt about this case initially when they were before the judge and the judge rejected the offer.
And Mark, but we're about 120 days out from when the judge says he'll actually put out a sentence. Is this a situation where first-time offender, we're looking at no jail time, or, as you suggested, possibly just 1 day in jail, but something that will serve as some type of incarceration?
It depends, first of all, how the pre-sentence investigation report comes back. Considering the unique nature of his background in this offense, they'll come up with a guideline range. That's the first thing. The judge doesn't have to sentence him within the guideline range, assuming it calls for a minimum amount of prison. The judge can deviate downward. But I certainly hope and expect that there isn't a trial tax. Judges don't talk about it, but we all know, Richard knows as a trial lawyer, what a trial tax is. You go to trial, and I'm going to punish you for it. Now, they'll never say it on the record, but it's a message to all the other people considering plea bargains. If you go to trial, you're going to be held accountable worse than had you simply taken the plea.
And from what I understand, as a layperson, not an attorney at all, Richard, what Mark is saying is hey, don't waste our time with this. You could have taken care of this before you brought this to me. But now that you are wasting taxpayers' dollars, I feel I'm going to really stick it to you.
He's 100% right. I mean, that's why you do a plea bargain, is because generally there's less punishment if you plea out than if you take the case to trial. But this defendant is remorseful. Again, he's a recovering addict. It's a nonviolent offense. It's a first-time offense. He's not a risk to anybody. There are so many reasons that he should be given a pretty light sentence in this case.
And Richard, so much is laid and talked about behavior in the courtroom and how it should or should not matter those who are there to support a defendant. Will this weigh into the judge's sentencing guidelines, you believe at all? The fact that the First Lady was seated there, the fact that his family was there, the fact that his daughter broke down on the stand when she had to testify against her father. Does the judge weigh these things, Richard, when he's thinking about a possible sentence?
I think the judge will weigh the testimony of the family members. I don't think the judge will weigh the presence of the family members. That's not something that would probably enter into the reasoning of the judge in sentencing, but certainly the testimony, certainly the fact that he has a family, that he has a loving and supportive family, those are things that the judge can and should consider.
And Richard, before I let you go quickly, and Mark, same question, what is the biggest takeaway from this historic moment? Richard.
Well, for me, the biggest takeaway is, the judicial system works. Whether or not you like these charges, this went to a jury. Nothing was rigged. Nothing was fixed. Here we have another jury considering the evidence, considering the judge's instruction, and rendering a decision. And agree with the prosecution or not, it's a judicial system at work.
Mark?
I agree with Richard, and I'll add that the Bidens had home court advantage, everybody was saying, because this is Delaware and they're loved by people in that state. It goes to show you that jurors generally get it right. If there was that feeling amongst them, they pushed it aside, they focused on the facts, and they said, yeah, he's guilty.
And they looked at the evidence in front of them. Mike Eiglarsh, Richard Schoenstein, thank you both for joining us this day on this breaking news and historic moment. Thank you both. Joining us now on the phone is NewsNation political editor, host of The Hill Sunday, Chris Stirewell. Chris, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Chris, you've been watching all of this unfold just like we all have, and we're just trying to really wrap our heads around a moment in history. Chris?
Well, it is a moment in history, but it's also not unusual for first families to have black sheep, to have problematic members. I think what's significant about Hunter Biden is that he's being prosecuted while his father's principal adversary in the presidential election is also in the criminal justice system. And that sharpens it. It increases the stakes. It makes it more important to voters, makes it more significant than if this was just another Roger Clinton or Billy Carter or one of the Bush brothers. We've had it before. We've been around this before, but never in the context of an ongoing presidential election where one of the nominees has been convicted of a crime himself.
Never in the context of an ongoing political election where also things are so tight, Chris. Chris, this verdict today, will this have any weight?
Well, it depends on how Hunter Biden and his team deal with it. Hunter Biden's conduct in contesting these charges and fighting them and making a public spectacle of himself and coming to Congress and the legal tactics that they've used have been undoubtedly harmful to his father's chances for re-election. It's been a really extraordinarily selfish display. And now the question is, so you have a jury verdict. It's not to say that he wouldn't be able to appeal, but they have to emphasize respect for the jury system, respect for the verdict, respect. It has to be deferential, and it has to acknowledge his guilt. The reality here is that Hunter Biden's crimes, or the crime in this case that he's been convicted of, are weighed against, in every instance, how Donald Trump is dealing with his own prosecution. So it's really incumbent on Hunter Biden to find a new tone and find a new tack that's of deference and respect, because otherwise it mitigates the advantage that Democrats obtain from Donald Trump's own legal problems.
And Chris, unfortunately, though, for Hunter, this is not the end. This is only the beginning of the end. Hunter still faces more legal trouble in the state of California.
Sure. And, you know, it's none of my business what happens inside the Biden family. But I will tell you that as a matter of political practice, in my observation of the way people practice politics, Hunter Biden, who made all this money and had all of these opportunities explicitly because of who his father was and because of his father's career and because of his access inside lofty Democratic circles, Hunter Biden owes every nickel he's made to his status as the son of a former senator, former vice president, now president. If he does not find it within himself to resolve these matters expeditiously, even if it means going to prison, even if it means those things, then it's a pretty towering ingratitude to his father. And, by the way, a pretty profound way to undercut the mission that his father says is so essential in saving democracy and keeping America alive, that Hunter Biden would allow his own ambitions here and his own desire to avoid consequences interfere with that seems pretty astonishingly selfish.
Well, if we're talking about nepotism on full display, we definitely can see that he definitely profited. And what you're saying, Chris, is that if you know you've done these things, Hunter, now is the time to actually fall on the cross, step up, and save your father's campaign.
Yeah, be of service here. If Hunter Biden's dad had been an auto mechanic from Wilmington, he would not have been jetting around the world making tens of millions of dollars for all of these things. He owes something he owes a lot to his father, and he has, by the way, abused the privileges. He admits, and everyone can see that he abused the privileges that were afforded to him by his position, and now you have to pay the piper. And that's life in the big city, folks.
Chris, what are you looking for, and what are you talking about on Sunday?
I'm sure excellence. I'm sure this excellence, manifold excellence, but I'm sure the repercussions of this will be there. And who knows what else. The political time moves so fast these days. On Tuesday, you think you know what you're going to talk about. By Sunday, the whole world has changed.
That is absolutely true, Chris, because we're following the details of this. Chris, one last question from you. Were you familiar with the statement released from President Biden, and do you think it struck the perfect tone?
Well, perfect is for the almighty, but I think, yes, I think it was respectful. I think it was deferential to the system and continues to lean on. The best defense that Biden has politically here is that so many millions of American families have people who have been destructive to the family and others in it because of their addiction. So I think leaning into that continues to be a good idea. Chris
Starwald, host of The Hill Sunday. Thank you so much, sir.
You bet.
Tonight, Leland Vittert is joined by the mother of Hunter Biden's 5-year-old daughter and 7th grandchild, who allegedly President Biden still has not met. London Roberts reacts to the Hunter Biden trial tonight during On Balance at 7 p.m. Eastern. We have a lot more news to get to in this news block. Don't go anywhere. A jury has just found Hunter Biden guilty on 3 felony gun charges. We will have reaction as well as more news as we wait to hear from the White House.
You'll get better when you're not blamed for a condition you can't control. You'll get better when your pain isn't minimized, dismissed, forgotten. We will never stop trying to get better. Because when medicine gets better, all of us can get better.
Welcome to the Waiverhood. With Wayfair, finding your style is fun. Again, when the music stops, grabbing the chair. Doesn't matter if it's your outdoor style or not.
I'm sorry, Carl. This is me in chair form.
I don't see it.
Oh, come on. This one's perfect for you. But you love it.
I told you we should have done a piñata.
I explained it so many times.
Mm-hmm.
They're not sitting.
You need to sit down.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
The pouch.
Gift him the best this Father's Day. They're called Shinesty Hammock Underwear. Soft, sweat-wicking, breathable underwear with a supportive pouch built in. Love your first pair or they're 100% free. Upgrade to hammock underwear at shinesty.com.
Remember when I said we need a screen for colon cancer?
Was that after I texted the age to screen was now 45? Because I said Cologuard.
Hey there.
Where did he come from?
Yep, with me, you can screen at home. Just talk to your provider. We'll screen with Cologuard and do it my way.
Cologuard is a one-of-a-kind way to screen for colon cancer that's effective and non-invasive. It's for people 45 plus at average risk, not high risk. False positive and negative results may occur.
Ask your provider for me, Cologuard.
My mental health was better, but uncontrollable movements called TD, tardive dyskinesia, started disrupting my day.
TD felt embarrassing. I felt like disconnecting. I asked my doctor about treating my TD and learned about Ingrezza.
Ingrezza is clinically proven for reducing TD. Most people saw results in just 2 weeks. People taking Ingrezza can stay on most mental health meds. Only #1 prescribed Ingrezza has simple dosing for TD. Always 1 pill once daily. Ingrezza can cause depression, suicidal thoughts, or actions in patients with Huntington's disease. Pay close attention to and call your doctor if you become depressed, have sudden changes in mood, behaviors, feelings, or have thoughts of suicide. Don't take Ingrezza if you're allergic to its ingredients. Ingrezza may cause serious side effects including angioedema, potential heart rhythm problems, and abnormal movements. Report fevers, stiff muscles, or problems thinking, as these may be life-threatening. Sleepiness is the most common side effect.
Take control by asking your doctor about Ingrezza.
Special guest Bill O'Reilly on CUOMO.
I know a lot, CUOMO, and you'd be very wise to listen very closely.
Toe to toe and TV's liveliest, most honest debate.
Can't wait till the next time I see you.
Tomorrow at 8/7 Central, only on NewsNation.
Welcome back. 22 minutes after the hour, we continue to follow breaking news of Hunter Biden being found guilty on all 3 counts of his gun trial. The president's son convicted of lying on an official form, lying to a gun dealer, and illegally possessing a gun while on narcotics. NewsNation's Kelly Meyer joins us from the White House with reaction. Kelly, the White House has been watching this, as has most of the country. What are you learning?
Yeah, Nick, what we did hear from President Biden in the form of a statement that we got in, he says that he is the president, but that he's also a dad and that he's really proud of his son, Hunter. He also talks about his son's battle with addiction and how anyone in America could feel that, how proud you must feel when your loved one comes out on the other side of addiction. He also says in this statement that he respects the outcome of this case, that he will accept the outcome of this case and respects the judicial process. This, as he says, Hunter considers an appeal, adding, quote, "Jill and I will always be there for Hunter and the rest of our family with our love and support. Nothing will ever change that." We know First Lady Jill Biden walked in moments after the verdict was reached there and missed it, but she did walk out with Hunter this morning. We also know that she's been going back and forth from Wilmington and D.C., as well as from Paris last week to Wilmington to be there in the courtroom. Now, today, President Biden is delivering remarks at a major gun prevention event conference here in Washington, D.C. We don't know if he will speak again on this publicly. We also have a White House press briefing this afternoon where they are likely to face more questions on this, but they may let this statement that we got from the president speak for itself. Nick?
One of the things you'd mentioned is Mr. Biden's statement is how he supports his son. I understand that coming from the president. Have you heard anything officially from the White House itself?
So that statement came in directly from the White House that we got. That is the one that we are receiving from the White House at this hour. Whether or not they share more information, as we said in that press briefing this afternoon, Karine Jean-Pierre will be there at the White House press briefing podium. I'm sure she will be asked questions about this. But again, they may just let that statement from the president speak for itself and try to move on from this.
Kelly, we have a statement now. I'll just share with our viewers and you right now from both Abby Lowell, Hunter Biden's attorney, and from Hunter himself. I'll begin with Hunter's. I'm more grateful today for the love and support I experienced last week from Melissa, my family, my friends, and my community, then I am disappointed by the outcome. Recovery is possible by the grace of God, and I am blessed to experience that gift one day at a time. That is a statement from Hunter Biden. From his attorney, Abby Lowell, we are naturally disappointed by today's verdict. We respect the jury process, and as we have done throughout this case, we will continue to vigorously pursue all the legal challenges available to Hunter. Through all he has been through in his recovery, including this trial, Hunter has felt grateful and blessed by the love and support of his family. Kelly, again, a very different tone about the outcome, which has to be disappointing to Hunter and his family and his supporters than we've heard from that, say, of the former president.
And they're really focusing there on his battle with addiction that he's been facing over the years. And as Chris Steyerwalt touched on, that so many Americans can relate to, so many American families that have been battling addiction within their family, their loved ones suffering that. And then, as the president said in his statement, seeing them come out on the other side. And that's why you're seeing the president in his statement saying he's very proud of his son, Hunter, focusing on that, again, saying that he respects and accepts the outcome of this case, will respect the judicial process, but saying that he stands by his son. As he said, he is the president, but he's also a father, and talks about his love for his son. We've seen Hunter here often at the White House, traveling with the president on Marine One, leaving the White House as they go on the weekend to Wilmington or elsewhere with his grandson as well. So you see the president a lot showing his support for his family, speaking with Hunter on the phone often. So it was somewhat expected that we were going to see that in his statement, expressing his love for his son, and then also saying that he accepts the outcome of this case. Nick?
Accepts the outcome of this case. Kelly Meyer live for us at the White House. Kelly, thank you so much. We have a lot more of this breaking news. We'll be right back. Again, a jury has found Hunter Biden guilty on 3 felony gun charges. What will this mean for his father and the race to the White House? We'll be right back.
It's never a good time for migraine, especially when I'm on camera. That's why my go-to is Nurtec ODT. For the acute treatment of migraine with or without aura and the preventive treatment of episodic migraine in adults. It's the only migraine medication that helps treat and prevent all in one.
Don't take if allergic to Nurtec ODT. Allergic reactions can occur even days after using. Most common side effects were nausea, indigestion, and stomach pain.
People depend on me. Without a migraine, I can be there for them. Talk to your doctor about Nurtec ODT today.
This bathroom's so musty.
Damprid's new fast-acting drop-in tab attracts and traps excess moisture, eliminating musty odors.
Hi, I'm Greg. I live in Bloomington, Illinois. I'm not an actor. I'm just a regular person. Some people say, why should I take Prevagen? I don't have a problem with my memory. Memory loss is not something that occurs overnight. I started noticing subtle lapses in memory. I want people to know that Prevagen has worked for me. It's helped my memory. It's helped my cognitive qualities. Give it a try. I want it to help you just like it has helped me.
Prevagen, at stores everywhere without a prescription.
Watch this. It's all 100% real. Witness what happens to this woman's bags under her eyes in an actual time lapse in just minutes. Nothing has been doctored or tampered with. The very real problem will disappear before your eyes and hers with a revolutionary topical formulation that works in just minutes, and the effects will last for hours and hours. Over 1 million people are using this topical technique to visually reduce puffiness and bags. It works on sagging jowls, even fine lines and wrinkles on the face and forehead. Introducing Plexiderm. In just minutes, you can restore and beautify your face, even look years younger. And the look will last all day or all evening.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm just in love with the mirror right now.
Jump on board and say yes to this amazing $14.95 Prove It Plexiderm trial. You'll see why our customers describe Plexiderm with 3 words. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Order right now. We'll pay your shipping. Operators are standing by.
Can Nariva support your brain health?
Mary, Janet, hey.
Eddie, no, Fraser, Frank. Frank?
Fred, how are you?
Fred.
Fuel up to 7 brain health indicators, including your memory. Join the Nariva Brain Health Challenge.
When things go sideways, will you be prepared? I want to introduce you to the Patriot Power Generator 2000X. Use the endless free power of the sun to power lights, your TV, medical equipment, even run your fridge. And that's without gas, fumes, or noise. Go to 4patriots.com. You'll get a solar panel included free, double the capacity, expandable for more power, and more outlets than ever. This is about peace of mind. Get your solar generator and free panel at 4patriots.com.
Build the pool yourself. What could go wrong?
Some things are better left to a professional,
It dried so fast.
like when it comes to finding financial advisors. So leave it to Smart Asset to find them for you. Take the free quiz at smartasset.com. Then you'll be matched with up to 3 vetted fiduciary financial advisors. To get started, take the Advisor Match Quiz now at smartasset.com.
Terrific.
We continue to follow breaking news from Wilmington, Delaware. After less than 3 hours of deliberation, a jury convicted Hunter Biden guilty on all 3 counts in his federal gun trial. He now faces up to 25 years in prison. The judge has not yet set a sentencing date. NewsNation correspondent Joe Khalil is live outside the federal courthouse in Wilmington, Delaware. And Joe, we expect to hear from the Trump-appointed special counsel who brought these charges in the coming hour.
It's certainly going to be interesting. David Weiss, the special counsel, who you rightly point out, appointed by former President Trump to oversee this case, he will be speaking at about 1:30 Eastern time. So that'll be the first time that we hear from the prosecution side. Just moments ago, we heard from Hunter Biden and from the defense. And I want to just put up on your screen here, if we can, Hunter's response here. It was not a long statement, but this is what he said. It says, quote, "I'm more grateful today for the love and support I experienced this last week from Melissa, his wife, my family, my friends, and my community than I am disappointed by the outcome. Recovery is possible by the grace of God, and I'm blessed to experience that gift one day at a time." He has tried to make recovery and his struggles with addiction the focus of his defense, along with the idea that even though he clearly is a drug addict, he says in his own book, in his own words, he self-describes as an addict, that during this crucial period when he actually bought the gun, that he was in recovery, that he was sort of in between drug relapses, and that he was in that short period clean enough where checking the box that says, no, I'm not a drug user, was legitimate and was telling the truth. Obviously, the jury did not buy that. And Nick, as you pointed out as well, it didn't take them a whole lot of time, less than 3 hours total of deliberation, less than an hour yesterday, and just about 2 hours today for them to come down with this verdict. And you saw the result there, guilty on all 3 counts. Lying on that gun form and then possessing a gun as a drug addict. Obviously, they did not buy what Hunter's attorneys were selling. And here we are now on a historic day, because we have never seen until today the son of a sitting president now convicted of 3 felony counts.
Joe, even as we mark this day in history with the significance of this, what are you expecting to possibly hear from the prosecution later today, who has also been fairly tight-lipped since this started this trial?
Yeah, they have. It'll be very interesting to hear what they have to say, especially because this case today, the reason we're even here is because a year ago, the plea deal that Hunter's attorneys came up with along with the prosecution fell apart. They were going to plead out, and there was not going to be a trial at all until Judge Mary Ellen Noreika, who oversaw the trial this time around, basically broke it up and said there are a lot of holes in this deal. I've never seen anything like this. It effectively gave Hunter immunity from prosecution in his other trial that's coming up, and the judge shut it down. So now we are here. It has been a long journey for the special prosecutor today, who is going to be speaking later on. It's been a long journey for Hunter Biden and his attorneys. So after all that they've been through with this case, I think it's going to be fascinating to hear from the prosecution themselves and what they have to say now that they have secured 3 guilty verdicts on these 3 felony counts.
Joe Khalil live at the federal courthouse in Wilmington, Delaware with the very latest. Joe Khalil, thank you. Joining us now is criminal defense attorney Bernarda Villalona. Bernarda, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How's it going?
It's going well, Bernarda. You've been watching these developments just like we have. Your immediate takeaway with Hunter Biden being found guilty on all 3 counts by the jury is what, Bernarda?
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised by the quick verdict. I'm not surprised by the verdict itself that he was found guilty on all 3 counts because it was a straightforward case to begin with. And the prosecution, the government did have strong evidence against Hunter Biden. My prediction from the very beginning was that Hunter Biden should have pled guilty in the sense that he should have held accountability for his actions in order to try to get some mitigation when it comes to the sentence. Because when you're talking about having your own family members testify against you and about your addiction and using your words against you in the sense of text messages, as well as the words from your books, it was very damaging evidence that the government had. And I didn't think there was a way that he would have been found not guilty unless we were seeking a mistrial or possibly jury nullification. But it would have been very hard on these facts.
Bernardo, you and I have talked about high-profile cases before, nothing like this, like the weight of a president's son. But being the first son of the state of Delaware, you think he and his team possibly thought that, hey, we walk in here with a little bit of weight that may weigh in our favor?
Absolutely. I think that was a possibility that the defense was actually banking on, especially given that they were packing the courtroom in the sense of the first row, having his stepmother, Jill Biden, inside of that courtroom pretty much for every day, with the exception of one day when she was out of the country. Because, of course, those Delaware residents, of course, they know who Hunter Biden is. Of course, they know the Biden name. Of course, they know Jill Biden. They know the story because he has a sympathetic story. And they were hoping to try to get emotions from this jury to try to get either a hung jury or to get an acquittal in the sense of jury nullification, that even though the prosecution proved that case beyond a reasonable doubt, that they shouldn't find him guilty and he shouldn't be held accountable for these crimes. Again, it's a sad day for this country because, number one, we're dealing with drug addiction, and number two, we're dealing with the son of a sitting president has now been found guilty of 3 felony counts, and there's still more to go.
Bernardo, we know that we're more than 100 odd some days out before the judge will actually sentence Hunter. But we had an attorney on earlier talking about how judges are often frustrated when the defense team doesn't take a plea deal. Instead, you bring this to our courtroom. Do you expect this to weigh into the judge's decision? And can you talk about how that process plays out, having been a criminal defense attorney for so many years?
So in terms of what's going to happen, in terms of what the judge is going to do, usually you talk about the trial tax, meaning that if a defendant were to go to trial and found guilty, that the judge is going to take that out on them. They're not supposed to do that. And actually, some judges will even put on the record, I'm not sentencing you harshly because you took your case to trial, because everyone is entitled to take their case to trial. So what will happen in a case like this? There are the sentencing guidelines, and they are just guidelines. A judge doesn't have to abide by those guidelines. In fact, he can deviate from those guidelines. We know that the maximum is 25 years. Highly unlikely that he'll get 25 years. The judge is going to take into account the sentencing factors that the code has in terms of the nature of the circumstances, doing a sentence that deters future conduct, having to deal with whether there was any violent crime that was associated with this. But most important is the characteristics of Hunter Biden. And I think that is what's going to stand out in this case. His background, no criminal record, drug addiction. Drug addiction is what led to this. Also having to deal with that he lost his brother, he lost his mother. He does have a sympathetic case. And the judge can also take into account that, look, at one point he wanted to accept responsibility. Remember, last year he was willing to accept responsibility, but there was a hiccup having to deal with the deferred prosecution. So a judge is going to factor all that in, but most importantly, is going to see what is special counsel David Weiss going to request in this case, and number two, what is the probation department going to request as a sentence in this case, and as well as all the letters that are going to be submitted on Hunter Biden's behalf.
Bernardo, I have a statement from the Trump campaign on the Hunter Biden trial verdict and the Biden crime family. I want to read this, and then I want to ask you a question on the other side. From the Trump campaign, this trial has been nothing more than a distraction from the real crimes of the Biden crime family, which has raked in tens of millions of dollars from China, Russia, and Ukraine. Crooked Joe Biden's reign over the Biden's family criminal enterprise is all coming to an end on November 5th. And never again will a Biden sell government access for personal profit. Bernardo, my question specifically to you, of course, when Hunter or someone in the Biden family reads this statement, they hear this, the response is to not overreact to this, because Hunter is still waiting for sentencing, and any type of reaction will be weighed into his possible sentencing, correct?
Absolutely. The best response is no response in a type of case like this. You know how Donald Trump is. You know what his motives are when it comes to anything having to deal with the Democratic Party or with the Bidens, or especially with Hunter Biden himself. So the best response is no response, because, of course, anything that Hunter Biden does say is possibly can be used against him at the time of sentencing. I think, they've chosen the high road, and they should keep with the high road in the sense of not reacting to this foolishness by Donald Trump's campaign.
Bernarda, less than 30 seconds. Last question for you. Hunter is still facing charges on for tax violations there. Will any of this weigh into that and how things go forward?
Yes, in terms of the tax violations, the judge is going to look that he does have open cases in determining a sentence. Quite honestly, what I would do if I were Hunter Biden's attorneys is that I would ask to delay the sentencing until there's a disposition on the tax fraud cases.
Bernarda Villalona. Bernarda, thank you again for breaking it all down for us.
Thank you.
We continue to follow this breaking news and are waiting for the White House press briefing later in the show. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us. We'll bring you everything you need to know. You're watching NewsNation Now.
I have type 2 diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily Jardiance at each day's start. As time went on, it was easy to see I'm lowering my A1C.
Jardiance works 24/7 in your body to flush out some sugar. And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardiance can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects may include ketoacidosis that may be fatal, dehydration that can lead to sudden worsening of kidney function, and genital yeast or urinary tract infections. A rare life-threatening bacterial infection in the skin of the perineum could occur. Stop Jardiance and call your doctor right away if you have symptoms of this infection, ketoacidosis, or an allergic reaction. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have symptoms of infection in your legs or feet. Taking Jardiance with a sulfonylurea or insulin may cause low blood sugar.
Jardiance is really swell, the little pill with the big story to tell.
Who's that? It's my puppy.
Cancer, it's different in a child because your child's still growing. I had 14 rounds of chemo. There's thousands and thousands of kids all over the world who need help.
This is my first time having cancer, and it's the very worst.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital works day after day to find cures and save the lives of children with cancer and other life-threatening diseases.
It's scary to watch your kid battle and fight for their lives.
1 in 5 children diagnosed with cancer in the U.S. will not survive.
Childhood cancer is hard. It's a long road. You just have to give. You have to give someone that hope, and especially with them being so young.
Please call, go online, or scan the QR code for only $19 a month. Families never receive a bill from St. Jude for treatment, travel, housing, or food, so they can focus on helping their child live.
She grew up in this, so when we go to St. Jude, she's happy because that's her home. Every time I take her to the doctor, she's excited because she gets to play. And that's all because of St. Jude.
When you call or go online with your credit or debit card right now, we'll send you this St. Jude t-shirt you can wear to show your support to help St. Jude save the lives of these children.
Si St. Jude no existiera, mi hijo no estaría vivo. Mi hijo sería un angelito.
Let's cure childhood cancer together.
I had over $36,000 in debt.
I didn't even know how I was going to buy food for my kids.
I picked up the phone and called National Debt Relief. They were my savior.
National Debt Relief can significantly reduce the amount you owe.
National Debt Relief reduced my debt by over $20,000.
Now that I'm out of debt, I feel great. I'm taking a trip to Puerto Rico.
I'm thriving. Our family's thriving.
Call or visit nationaldebtrelief.com to get started.
Welcome back. 44 minutes after the hour. We're staying on top of breaking news right now. The prosecution set to speak at the top of the hour. This after the president's son, Hunter Biden, has been convicted on all 3 counts in his federal gun trial. Right after the verdict, Hunter was seen holding hands with the First Lady and his wife as they left the courthouse. Earlier, I spoke with NewsNation political editor and host of The Hill Sunday, Chris Stirewalt, on what happens next.
Well, it is a moment in history, but it's also not unusual for first families to have black sheep, to have problematic members. I think what's significant about Hunter Biden is that he's being prosecuted while his father's principal adversary in the presidential election is also in the criminal justice system. And that sharpens it. It increases the stakes. It makes it more important to voters, makes it more significant than if this was just another Roger Clinton or Billy Carter or one of the Bush brothers. We've had it before. We've been around this before, but never in the context of an ongoing presidential election where one of the nominees has been convicted of a crime himself.
Never in the context of an ongoing political election where also things are so tight, Chris. Chris, this verdict today, will this have any weight?
Well, it depends on how Hunter Biden and his team deal with it. Hunter Biden's conduct in contesting these charges and fighting them and making a public spectacle of himself and coming to Congress and the legal tactics that they've used have been undoubtedly harmful to his father's chances for re-election. It's been a really extraordinarily selfish display. And now the question is, so you have a jury verdict. It's not to say that he wouldn't be able to appeal, but they have to emphasize respect for the jury system, respect for the verdict, respect. It has to be deferential, and it has to acknowledge his guilt. The reality here is that Hunter Biden's crimes, or the crime in this case that he's been convicted of, are weighed against, in every instance, how Donald Trump is dealing with his own prosecution. So it's really incumbent on Hunter Biden to find a new tone and find a new tack that's of deference and respect, because otherwise it mitigates the advantage that Democrats obtain from Donald Trump's own legal problems.
And Chris, unfortunately, though, for Hunter, this is not the end. This is only the beginning of the end. Hunter still faces more legal trouble in the state of California.
Sure. And, you know, it's none of my business what happens inside the Biden family. But I will tell you that as a matter of political practice, in my observation of the way people practice politics, Hunter Biden, who made all this money and had all of these opportunities explicitly because of who his father was and because of his father's career and because of his access inside lofty Democratic circles, Hunter Biden owes every nickel he's made to his status as the son of a former senator, former vice president, now president. If he does not find it within himself to resolve these matters expeditiously, even if it means going to prison, even if it means those things, then it's a pretty towering ingratitude to his father and, by the way, a pretty profound way to undercut the mission that his father says is so essential in saving democracy and keeping America alive, that Hunter Biden would allow his own ambitions here and his own desire to avoid consequences interfere with that seems pretty astonishingly selfish.
Well, if we're talking about nepotism on full display, we definitely can see that he definitely profited. And what you're saying, Chris, is that if you know you've done these things, Hunter, now is the time to actually fall on the cross, step up, and save your father's campaign.
Yeah, be of service here. If Hunter Biden's dad had been an auto mechanic from Wilmington, he would not have been jetting around the world making tens of millions of dollars for all of these things. He owes something to he owes a lot to his father, and he has, by the way, abused the privileges. He admits, and everyone can see that he abused the privileges that were afforded to him by his position, and now you have to pay the piper. And that's life in the big city, folks.
Chris, what are you looking for, and what are you talking about on Sunday?
I'm sure excellence. I'm sure this excellence, manifold excellence, but I'm sure the repercussions of this will be there. And who knows what else. The political time moves so fast these days. On Tuesday, you think you know what you're going to talk about. By Sunday, the whole world has changed.
That is absolutely true, Chris, because we're following the details of this. Chris, one last question from you. Were you familiar with the statement released from President Biden, and do you think it struck the perfect tone?
Well, perfect is for the almighty, but I think, yes, I think it was respectful. I think it was deferential to the system and continues to lean on. The best defense that Biden has politically here is that so many millions of American families have people who have been destructive to the family and others in it because of their addiction. So I think leaning into that continues to be a good idea.
Chris Starwald, host of The Hill Sunday. Thank you so much, sir. Still to come, we are waiting to hear from prosecutors at any moment. We will bring you that live as soon as it happens. Don't go anywhere. You're watching NewsNation Now on News for All America.
We're going to give you uncommon coverage. No hype, just reality.
There is so much more that's about to happen.
That's not just media hype.
Traditional versus progressive value.
The mighty News Nation has assembled a strong team to help take us through.
News Nation, News for All America.
Shame. It's been here as long as I can remember. Living in glances of people I loved and ones I didn't even know. But what good is shame when it comes to health? Health is not about what weight we lose. It's about all the things a body can gain.
At Fisher Investments, we may look like other money managers, but we're different.
You can't be that different.
We are. We have a team of specialists not only in investing, but also in financial and estate planning and more.
Your clients rely on you for all that?
Yes, and as a fiduciary, we always put their interests first.
But you still sell commission-based products, right?
No, we have a simple management fee structured so we do better when our clients do better.
Huh, we're more different than I thought.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different.
You were diagnosed with thyroid eye disease a long time ago. And year after year, you weathered the storm and just lived with the damage that was left behind. But even after all this time, your thyroid eye disease could still change. Restoration is still possible. Learn how you could give your eyes a fresh start at TEDhelp.com.
We have a deal. Thanks, everyone.
Can you imagine if it was $1 million instead of $1 billion?
We'd be so fired.
No. Check the outer notes.
Oh. Yes. Multiple meetings say billion with a B. We've got this.
Otter, you got this.
And deep breath in.
Did you know that people everywhere are recommending GoodRx?
My doctor told me about GoodRx to help us save money on our meds.
And my daughter told me about it. I take a lot of prescriptions. GoodRx helps me keep up.
My neighbor showed me the app. To help me save on my kids' allergy pills.
Americans everywhere are sharing the savings.
Dropping off a prescription.
Great.
Another good reason to check GoodRx.
Dad is a legend, and his legendary moves might be passed down to you. Dancing is just one of the many inherited traits you can discover with Ancestry DNA. Get it for Dad, and together you can see which traits were inherited, the places where they started, and the people he shares them with. Best of all, it's on sale for Father's Day. But get moving. This sale is only for a limited time.
When your vehicle is broken, you can't go here, or go get those, or even do this. And face it, breakdowns will happen, and they can cost you thousands you can't afford. So how do you cover the skyrocketing cost of auto repairs? Easy. Everything Breaks is a new kind of auto protection plan. While other plans can cost you $150 a month, Everything Breaks covers you for as little as $1 a day. Why not get a free instant quote right now? Call 1-800-276-4857. You also get free roadside assistance, free towing, and free rental cars. Plus, unlike other providers, your savings start on day one. Call now for a free quote to join the growing crowd saving thousands on repairs. Call 1-800-276-4857. 1-800-276-4857.
Get it all covered your way, 'cause everything breaks.
We continue to follow that breaking news. Hunter Biden has been found guilty on 3 felonies related to a purchase of a gun in 2018. He was accused of lying about his drug use when buying that revolver. The jury deliberated for about 3 hours before reaching a verdict. Hunter Biden has said he appreciates his loved ones, his father. The president said he loves his son. We are awaiting the White House briefing and prosecutors who are expected to speak any moment now. Earlier today, President Joe Biden said in a statement which reads in part, "I will accept the outcome of this case and will continue to respect the judicial process as Hunter considers an appeal. Jill and I will always be there for Hunter," end quote. Again, the president's son was found guilty on 3 charges. It's the first time a sitting president's son has been found guilty of a felony. We'll be back with reaction from the prosecution right after this.